tunnel cannot be allowed to continue. The tunnel was first opened 120 years ago and was not designed to cope with today's levels of traffic. It was closed 700 times alone in 2017-18, 700 times in 1 year, making it the least reliable river crossing in London. The single-decker bus, the 108, that does cross the river using this tunnel is deemed unreliable by passengers and potential passengers. In fact, it's probably the most unreliable bus in London. These Blackwall Tunnel closures can lead to total gridlock with tailbacks of 2 miles, leading to stationary traffic pumping out noxious fumes, causing some of the worst air quality in London. The Silvertown Tunnel is the best way to resolve these problems, and London cannot afford to wait any longer to see it delivered. When I became mayor in 2016, I inherited a design for Silvertown Tunnel scheme which had very limited environmental considerations. We assessed this scheme and made significant changes to better protect the environment and ensure it has a greater focus on walking, cycling and public transport. At the same time, I asked TfL to stop work on road crossings at Galleon's Reach and Belvedere. By effectively reducing congestion, the Silvertown Tunnel will deliver an overall improvement in air quality and be within the expanded ultra-low emission zone. It will not lead to any increase in CO2 emissions, and local landscaping and pocket parks will improve the local area and deliver a net gain in biodiversity in the longer term. The scheme also includes setting a minimum number of buses per hour at peak times, concessions for local residents, and walking and cycling improvements in the surrounding area. TfL is also investing in other public transport infrastructure in East London, including the new DLR trains and extending the London Overground to Barking Riverside, and new bus routes through Silvertown Tunnel, giving more Londoners the ability to cross the river without being forced to rely on driving. TfL has spent significant time developing the scheme in close consultation with stakeholders, which has resulted in a strong set of commitments and controls to ensure it delivers the forecast environmental, economic and social outcomes. There will be no overall increase in the levels of traffic, but with additional trips being accommodated through the new clean cross-river bus services that the scheme facilitates. Central to the scheme is the introduction of user charging across Blackwall and Silvertown tunnels to ensure there is no overall increase in traffic and that the scheme delivers an overall improvement in air quality and no CO2 emissions through reduced congestion and tailbacks.
Okay. Assembly Member Russell.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, by building this tunnel, you are paving the way for increased traffic and locking in vehicle-dominated motorways which already sever communities in Silvertown, North Greenwich, Blackwall and beyond. Nobody wants to live next to a motorway tunnel mouth. Now, you mentioned, there'll be some pocket parks. That's something you might expect in a healthy street. But is Silvertown Tunnel really compatible with your healthy streets agenda?
The problem we have that you can't address is how we deal with the fact that Blackwall Tunnel is closed 700 times a year on average, which leads to the catastrophe that we currently have where there's tailbacks, there's poor quality air, there's congestion, but also people don't cross the river using the bus because it's unreliable. Why is it unreliable? Because the Blackwall Tunnel is often closed, there are massive tailbacks, and the passenger, when he or she chooses to get on that bus, has no confidence they'll reach the other side at any time in the near future. So actually, by having a tunnel which has a lane reserved for buses, it will start with 20 buses an hour, going to 37 an hour. You'll have public transport going from one side to the other side, encouraging more people to use public transport, but also we're organising people to get from one side to the other who are pedestrians or cyclists for free as well.
Mr Mayor, not only is it an unhealthy street, having this massive extra motorway tunnel charging through East London, it's also a climate failure. Now, the Welsh Government, they recently declared a climate emergency. Their next decision was cancelling a big road. They cancelled the M4 project. How do you justify introducing a massive new road tunnel when we're in a climate emergency? We should be decarbonising transport as fast as possible.
Chair, I think I could understand that question coming from somebody from Wales who doesn't understand the area. I'm astonished that somebody who claims to understand the area doesn't understand the current problems that exist.
Mr Mayor,
let me answer the question at least before being interrupted.
The embedded carbon from the construction process alone, Assemblymember Gavron was just talking about embedded carbon with buildings. The embedded carbon from the construction alone would be the equivalent to 7 years of existing emissions from the Blackwall Tunnel and its approaches. If you sign off on Silvertown Tunnel, not only are those local communities going to suffer, but you'll be saddling a future mayor and Londoners with either a huge tunnel building debt or a massive cancellation fee. Are you really sure that you're happy with a 4-lane urban motorway being the legacy of your transport policy?
Chair, can I just check how long do I have before I'm interrupted?
I have a minute of time left.
Right, let me try and in a minute answer your 3-minute question. So we've got a problem. We've got a problem there. There is a problem. There's massive congestion. There's poor quality air already. There's tailbacks. The Blackwall Tunnel is unreliable. Doing nothing is not an option. We're also expanding the ultra-low emission zones, so it will include both the tunnels. So user charge for both tunnels, one lane being guaranteed for buses, including getting cyclists and pedestrians from one side to the other, will improve the quality of air in that part of London. Doing nothing is what we've been doing for the last few years, and that's led to the problem we have now. Now, comparing the M4 to a situation where the river can't be crossed is not really realistic, and I'd expect more from a Londoner. And that's why you can't compare the M4 with the Blackwall Tunnel and the Silvertown Tunnel. It is a situation now where if you want to get across the river using public transport, you choose not to do so. You either don't go across the river or you drive your car. And that's what the Silvertown Tunnel is trying to address.
Mr Mayor, look, it's not too late. You've been incredibly progressive declaring a climate emergency, and London is really proud of that. You don't have to sign the contract for this dinosaur project. You could just fix the unreliability of Blackwall Tunnel rather than building this massive great
Chair,
big
here
new
we have
one.
it. So, Chair.
I'm out of time.
Well, you're out of ideas as well. How does the Assembly member intend to fix a tunnel that's closed 700 times a year, leading to gridlock and tailback? I mean, we can't have Mayor's question time where members make speeches and not ask questions, but that's the Greens for you.